How come you haven't been in contact with anybody from high school? Not one of us. Nobody knew what you were doing or where you were. Not on Facebook or anything. Even I went to our 20th high school reunion. For 5 minutes, she said under her breath, his tension building. I had to move on. I've still never been back to Seaside City. Reinventing myself was the only thing that mattered, because otherwise I wasn't going to make it. Maybe that sounds crazy, and talking with you makes me regret it, but there was no Facebook or texting with people. There was no way to keep in touch then. I was happy to disappear. But I don't want this to be all about me. What have you been doing? She listened and nodded slowly, still wary, until he got to his question. I'm taking it one day at a time. Normal life in abnormal times. Nothing too exciting. What else other than your work? Are you married? Yes and no. Squinting. What does that mean? It's one or the other, not both. Luke looked away for a moment as some people walked by dressed nearly like Eskimos. I have 2 children with a woman named Kelly Dillon, and we live together. What about you, though? He asked as she took on a wan smile. There are men. You know how they are. But you haven't talked to Seth? Luke took another sip of his coffee, wondering what it was doing to his intestinal tract. No, not a word. Do you know what he's doing these days? Jeanie grinned, leaning back and putting one leg over the other. She seemed immune to the cold, while Luke felt his body turning to ice. Yeah, he actually became a sports broadcaster. The Philadelphia Eagles. His jaw dropped as she nodded. That's amazing. I don't follow football. Nate's always hounding him for free tickets, right? Luke nudged her arm, but her grin vanished and she shut her eyes. You don't know? Luke, Nate died. What? Struck senseless. A few years ago of a heart defect. Something he was born with, and then out of the blue he dropped. You didn't hear about that? Reeling, Luke shook his head. Nate dead. Unbelievable. And what about Krista? Afraid to find out. Chris. Luke started nodding immediately as Jeanie went on. He's doing great as well. Working with extremely talented junior athletes. Kind of kids they're prepping for the Olympics. Don't know if any have made it. Brilliant. Vanessa? She took it the hardest when Nate died. Not sure if she ever got over it. She's still in Seaside. I talk to her maybe once a year. Leaning on the armrest, Luke looked out at the mostly vacant snow-covered park. All these things had happened, and he was completely oblivious to them. Is she happy? Because she didn't have it easy. Jeanie became pensive, glancing at Luke in a way that she had when she was cooking up trouble. Happy enough. And she sure didn't. That's good, he said absently, grappling with everything he'd heard. More questions sprang into his mind, but before he could ask any of them, he felt a sharp tug on his sleeve. Jeanie had shifted and put one leg up so she could face him, and her yanking arm forced him in her direction. Her brown eyes washed over him, curious, nervous, wary. She leaned closer, searching him for the truth, and spoke in a low voice. What happened the night that you left?